Welcome, everybody. You're listening to the official Hindsight Journal podcast, where you get to hear from us, the student staff, as well as our contributors and some other special guests along the way that make this journal possible. Today, we're going to hear from a special guest, Cora Goodwin, the author of Considering Clouds and Other Works of His Fingers, which was featured in our most recent volume of Changing Skies and was the first place winner in our Prose Competition. So we'll get to that in a minute. Just a couple quick things to note right off the bat. If you missed our first episode of the podcast where we talked with Jay Ellis, our faculty staff advisor, the one who makes the whole thing happen, be sure to check that out. It's on our YouTube channel, and there's a couple cool clips you can check out on our TikTok, which is just hindsight.journal on TikTok, so be sure to go give that a follow. Also, a few of us will be in Baltimore next week at the Association of Writers and Writers Programs Conference, or AWP. All right. We would now like to welcome Cora, our special guest. Cora Goodwin was the author of Considering Clouds and Other Works of His Fingers, published in our last edition of Changing Skies. And not only that, but she was the first place winner in our prose writing competition. Cora, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I just wanted to get off with a couple questions real quick. I want to learn a little bit about your writing background. So how did you start writing, and is this something you've been doing your whole life? Did it start in college or maybe in high school, or just kind of how did you get your foot in the door?
Mm-hmm. I honestly started writing when I was a kid. I read a lot of books. I was super into them when I was little. And I think I had a really big imagination. It was something my friends and I did in elementary school. And so I just wrote a bunch of really dumb stories, a bunch of really silly ones. But yeah, so it's something that I've been doing, not really seriously, but just in my free time. It's a hobby that I really enjoyed. But yeah, it's been really fun. I think I've always thought that it'd be really cool to be an author, but yeah.
So I'm a little curious. We like to ask everyone this, but how did you hear about our journal, the Hindsight Journal, and what made you want to try and get your piece published?
I was taking a travel writing class with Dr. Knowlton, and she had us write an essay for her class, and I went to her office hours about it because I wasn't sure if I was doing the assignment correctly. So I gave her a draft and I asked her for her feedback on it, and she read it and she told me, she was like, "Oh, Cora, I think you should consider submitting your essay to this writing contest." And I actually didn't know at first that it was a journal. She was just like, "Oh, there's there's a cash prize. It's this contest. You should consider doing it." And I was like, "Oh, that'd be fun." I've always kind of thought it'd be cool to be an author. I never thought that that'd be something I could do. But I was like, sure, I have nothing to lose. So then I submitted it. And then later I got an email back and it was like, "Congrats, accepted. It's going to be published." And I was like, what? But I'm really grateful. It's been really fun. So through my professor was how I heard about it.
Awesome. So your professor knew you had something special there. And was that the first piece you've ever had published?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. And I want to ask about that piece. What about it? What about that kind of experience made you feel you wanted to write about it? Why was it that experience specifically that you chose to recall and make a whole piece about?
Yeah. So for our class assignment, our professor wanted us to, because it was a travel writing class, she wanted us to choose one of the travels or adventures we'd been on and sort of focus in on small individual memories we had and really describe them in detail and things that stood out to us or were, I guess, important or cool or interesting. And just really focus on describing the scene and using our five senses to describe it. And honestly, that trip, that was really easy for me to be oh, I should write about the time that my friends and I went to California, because that was sort of the whole theme of the trip, I think, is I learned to be really curious about things and take time to look at things. And so when she said that, I was like, oh, of course I'm going to write about that trip. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So as I understand it, you have a religious background. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And had you regularly been to church, or was that experience that you talked about in your piece kind of a first time for you?
Mm-hmm. I have been going to church since I was a little kid. I grew up in a Christian family, but I didn't really go super a lot until college. So that was something that I had been doing. And one of my friends was like, "What if we went to a small church in the middle of nowhere? Wouldn't that be fun?" And I was like, sure. When else am I going to do that in my life?
Right. Totally. Yeah. It's always cool to try and find different. There's some beautiful churches even here in the U.S.
Yeah.
But, so that is a good suggestion by your friend for sure. I'm curious. Did you feel as if you kind of got to relive the trip with your friends when you were writing about it? And if so, what did reflecting on it and then writing about it, kind of taking that deep dive into it again, how did that make you feel in retrospect? Did it make you change kind of your opinion on the trip, or make you realize anything that you hadn't before?
I think it's a really great question. I think it definitely did. Like, even as I was writing it, I was, like, looking at pictures because I was, like, trying to think of other things I could talk about. Like, talking about the redwoods was really easy because that, like, even when we were going, felt like the crux of our trip. Like, when we went to that little church, people were like, what are you doing? Like, where are you going? And we're like, oh, we're going to go to the redwoods and come back. And so that, like, felt easy to talk about. But there were other small moments that I was like, oh, what else should I include? So it was fun to, like, look through pictures. And, like, I was talking to my friends as I was writing it. And so that was all really fun. And it definitely, like, helped me remember or think about what I had done and seen, because sometimes you forget when you're doing school and, like, you're busy. Totally. But I think it was really cool too, because I think mostly, like, when I was going, the things that I had been thinking about were, like, I think I talked about this in my essay, but I think I'd sort of forgotten what it was like to be curious about something, or, like, to ask questions, or to, like, kind of be in awe, or, like, feel like a sense of wonder about a thing. And, like, that was, like, a thing that I knew was super true after that trip, because I was like, wow, like, that spider was crazy. Like, the things that we saw were really interesting. Or watching my friend Sarah, like, I mean, she lives in Texas. She's, like, seen the ocean a bunch. She's, like, been to all 50 states. She's traveled everywhere. Wow. So she's seen the ocean a lot. But to see her, like, super, like, like, she was, like, actually really jumping up and down. Like, that's really what happened. She was just like, wow, look at the ocean. And to see her have, like, such childlike wonder, I think was super cool. But I think an additional thing that I've been thinking about since writing it was, I think, sort of like something that you had mentioned, like this connection with like God, or like religious things. Like, that wasn't something I super thought about at the time. I think I've had, like, other experiences and other things I've learned since then that have helped me, like, connect the two more clearly. And I think that was, like, foundational to that lesson. But I think in writing it in retrospect, I was thinking about these things and thinking about, like, how they're all connected or interwoven, and how I think it points to something like that.
Yeah. Do you still think about that spider from time to time?
I do.
Are you a bug person, or like, because I know some people are bug people and other people really aren't bug people, but some people can kind of, have their opinions changed about that. I'm curious if, like, you're like, you spiders, and then before that, and then maybe all of a sudden you just appreciated them, or not. That's
a great question. Low-key spiders still spook me. When I see one in my room, I'm like, no, don't be in here. But I think bugs are cool. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was just cool mostly because of the web. I wish I liked bugs more. One of my friends is super into bugs, and she, like, always has fun bug facts for me. So when she tells me, I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Bug people are a unique pack for sure, but yeah. we gotta love them. Next question: which theme were you really trying to hammer home on in your piece? Like, what was the most important to you? Of the ones you listed? I mean, we had themes about going to school here at CU, about God, about chemistry. What was your main focus, I guess?
I would certainly say God. I feel like it was something that's, like, really important to me, and something that I think, like, was beneath this entire experience. So it was something that, like, I definitely wanted to, like, and I didn't want to be, like, super, like, overt about it, or super, like, clear. I mean, I think I was, but I was also just trying to, like, have it be more of, like, an undercurrent of, like, this thing that I think was really important and, like, central to this experience that I had, and, like, why it was so beautiful and good. Yeah, so I would say that was, like, this whole idea that I think, like, the beautiful things that we see in nature, or the things around us, I think really do, like, I think they can be helpful in, like, pointing us towards something greater, or I think they're, yeah.
Totally. One of my personal favorite aspects of your piece is kind of that parallel between studying biology and chemistry in the confines of Boulder, kind of here, with, like, the imaginary curtain around you, you're just kind of stuck here. And then versus getting out and observing all of that in person, like, firsthand in nature. And so I'm curious, do you feel that one of those ways of experiencing the world is more important than the other? I guess it's a long-winded question, but, do you see more value in really learning the science behind something and understanding it, or getting out into the nature and seeing it for yourself?
Oh, that's such a good question. I honestly think for me, like, both are super important. Like, I feel like my appreciation for nature and the things around me is increased by my understanding of how it works. Like, I feel like, I mean, I'm, like, a molecular biology major, and so mostly we talk about, like, embryos developing or like human cells. So we're not really talking about like trees or anything. But even in that, like I think my understanding of like how cells work or how photosynthesis happens loosely, or like all these insane chemical processes and like proteins and DNA unraveling to like make the proteins, I feel like increases my appreciation for nature, because I'm like, because I feel like it's easy to look at a tree and be like, oh, that's just a tree. And I mean, in the redwoods, it's different because those trees are like massive. Sure. So even if you're not, I don't know. But I think in some ways I was like even more amazed, because I was like, wow, I like kind of understand the science behind this tree. Like I kind of understand what goes into it and like how it works and how it functions in these like tiny little parts that I can't see, that I'm told make it up. And I think in some ways that like increases my wonder and awe, because I'm like, I don't fully understand how this works, but I think this in itself is like insane. And to see it like played out in front of me is like really beautiful. So I think it's both. I think a lot of people aren't science people, which is totally fine. Like not everyone is like as obsessed with cells as I am. And I think you can still find so much beauty in like the Grand Canyon or in like trees or just experiencing other things. So I think there's just so much to be learned from a thing that's different than what you're used to. Because I think it's just good to be exposed to different perspectives and different people and like different landscapes. But for me, I really do think science is like integral to like my appreciation, because I think it makes me more amazed by it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. You kind of, it's hard to always remember just how many components go into every little thing. One of my favorite quotes from a really bad movie is it's in Jurassic Park 3, and the main character is telling this kid, he's like, the way I see it, there's two kinds of people in the world. There's those who want to be astronauts and those who want to be astronomers. And what he's getting at is like, some people just want to observe the universe from a distance and, you know, learn every little thing there is to know about it, but never like step foot off this planet. And like, meanwhile, those who want to be astronauts, you know, their way of experiencing it is getting out there. Like they need to be hands-on, they need to see it. So I kind of thought about that with your piece too, with kind of what we just talked about. And yeah, I think like you said, that balance is cool to achieve. Like you don't want to spend all your time stuck here in Boulder or wherever you are, but I think it's cool to get that knowledge, like that extensive knowledge about how things really work, because then once you do get out there, like you were saying, and see those things, you do appreciate it more once you know just how much is really going on beyond its just natural beauty. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's such a fun quote. I feel like that is like a good reminder. I feel like my tendency would naturally be like, oh, I just want to learn everything about this thing, but I think you're right. I think it's really good to get out there and see things. That's a cool quote. I like it.
Yeah. Wouldn't recommend the movie. It's not that good, but for some reason that part stuck with me. But yeah, it seems like the trip taught you a lot about the world and how you view it. So what do you hope people who read your piece, what mark do you want to leave upon them? What do you hope changes in their minds when they read your piece?
That's a good question. I feel like I definitely want people, or I think my hope would be people would like, I think, slow down more and take a look at the things around us. I think it's really easy to be caught up in the busy things. And honestly, like, if anything seems ordinary or, like, mundane, I think it seems pretty unremarkable and we don't pay any attention to it. Like, there's a bunch of squirrels in my neighborhood. And, you know, that's, like, true of, like, most neighborhoods in America, I think. Yeah. But I feel like if you really, like, take time to be slow and, like, recognize, like, oh, my goodness, I live on a planet where there are, like, trees and there are, like, these weird little animals running around doing stuff, existing at all points of time, regardless of what I'm doing. And taking time to, like, even appreciate something as small or ordinary as that, or, like, as, like, pebbles on the ground, or, like, clouds in the sky, and things like that. I think that's really good and impactful, and I think it can, like, enhance your, like, experience on a day-to-day basis. Like, if you take time to slow down and appreciate, which I also realize sounds sometimes, like, a little naive or, like, optimistic, but I think it is true if we're, like, taking time to appreciate the beauty in things and not find things that are so commonplace, ordinary, because I really don't think they are. I don't think there's anything that's just, like, completely ordinary and uninteresting. Like, I think everything, if you really think about, is, like, crazy complex and, like, kind of a miracle in some ways. So I think I would hope that people don't feel like they're so caught up in, like, the busyness of life, because there's just so much to do. Like, I'm, like, trying to apply to medical school right now, and so I, like, always feel like I'm constantly trying to figure out something, or, like, trying to work, or trying to go to my classes, or trying to do the clubs that I'm in, and or, like, the volunteering that I do. But I feel like it's good to slow down and, like, look outside of that And also I think in some ways, this is something that I tell my friends a lot actually, but I think it's true. I think like regardless of what it is, if it's something like as big and vast and beautiful as the Grand Canyon or something as small as like a tumbleweed, I feel like if you're not like feeling wonder or awe about something in nature, you simply haven't looked at it long enough. And I think that's true of anything. And sometimes I think it'll take a really long time. Like I think looking at a waterfall won't take as long, but I think looking at like a single rock might.
Sure.
But I think that's true. And so I think I like would hope that people would take the time to like try to see and like think about it and consider like why it's so interesting or fantastic or a little wondrous and astounding that like something as small as like a pebble exists or something like a tumbleweed or even like a single grain of sand. Yeah, because I really do think it's like good to consider. Yeah, and I really do think it's like a wonderful, beautiful place that we found ourselves in. And I think lots of questions can come from that, which are interesting to pursue. But yeah.
I absolutely love that message. I mean, yeah, nothing in nature can't be appreciated for sure. And yeah, we're not the first to say it by any means, but it's important to not get too caught up in all of this man-made stuff that we tell each other is important. And it is in its own right. But at the end of the day, we share this planet with so many other organisms and all this beautiful nature around us that we kind of neglect sometimes. And you're right, it's absolutely crucial that we take a minute every now and then and just appreciate the world we live in. So
Yeah.
I love that message. And
Yeah.
I hope other people will read your piece and feel the same way. So yeah.
And can I say one other thing?
Of course.
And I think like another thing that I like about my essay or something that I think is important is I think another thing that I was like trying to convey is I think sometimes people think, and I think it's fair that they think that like science and like religion are like opposed. Like they can't both be true. Like if you believe in science, you can't like believe in like a higher power, or you can't be like a Christian or whatever else it is. And I really don't think that's true. And I was hoping that like in writing it, that could sort of challenge some of these thoughts of like you can totally 100% believe in evolution or totally 100% be like a firm believer in science and like the things around us and like super study those things. And I really do think in some ways all those things like can point to something greater. So it's not just like they're opposed. Right. So I would hope that would be true too. Because I mean, I understand why people think that, because I think sometimes people say things and it's like, but
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I got that message from your piece too. I thought that was really cool. But yeah, Cora, thank you so much again for coming on here. It was great to learn more about this piece. If you're listening and you haven't read it, it's available for free to read at the Hindsight website. Just go to Changing Skies Volume 4, and it's on page 109, I believe is when it starts. It's the last one in the journal, and it's absolutely beautiful. You did an amazing job.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming in here to talk about it. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Thanks, Cora. That was Cora Goodwin. We're super thankful to have her on the show today. We really, really appreciate her making the time to come down here. And again, if you have not checked out her piece, it's called Considering Clouds and Other Works of His Fingers. It's in Volume 4 of Changing Skies, and you can read it for free on our website. And I really recommend that you do, because I think there's something for everybody in that piece. So be sure to give it a read if you haven't already. Otherwise, that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on our socials at Instagram and TikTok at hindsight.journal. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel as well, where you'll be able to find our other podcast episodes. And we hope to see you next time. This has been the Hindsight Journal Podcast.